background in advertising, Itoi came up with a lot of concepts for the game's design, but had very little real or tangible game created for the pitch. And while Miyamoto liked Itoi's ideas, he was unsure whether or not Itoi could pull them off due to his inexperience with game development. Miyamoto also wasn't super keen to follow the trend of game companies working with popular celebrities to mediocre results. Think Takeshi's Challenge.
Out of this house! Out of this house! Spirits be gone from this house.
And while Itoi might be unknown in the States, in Japan he is a bona fide personality. He was in My Freaking Neighbor Totoro, for Pete's sakes. Yeah, that movie that I haven't seen. But Itoi insisted that he wanted to make the game. So Miyamoto and then Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi helped him start a development studio known as Ape Inc. What resulted from these efforts was a game known as Mother, released for the Famicom on July 27, 1989, exclusively in Japan. The title put the players into the role of the 12-year-old Ninten, really creative name there, guys, who must use his psychic powers to help stop an alien invasion in rural America and travel to the mystic land of Magic Hands. As mentioned previously, the title's gameplay drew heavily from other JRPGs of the era, but switched out swords and sorcery for psychic abilities and baseball bats. Mother was fairly well received, with critics praising its sense of humor and graphics, and it ended up moving around 150,000 copies, making it a moderate success. So development on a sequel began pretty much immediately, with Itoi still acting as the creative force, but featuring an entirely new team of developers. Unfortunately, the development of Mother 2, or Earthbound outside of Japan, was rife with difficulties, presenting numerous roadblocks and delays despite the dev team's best efforts. In fact, these problems got so severe that after 5 years in development, Earthbound was facing cancellation. Enter producer Satoru Iwata, who insisted that the team scrap all of their programming work and start over, or else the development could drag on for another 2 years. They agreed to do so, and with Iwata's help, the title was completed in just 1 more year, releasing in Japan on August 27th, 1994, and in North America on June 5th, 1995. This game brought back and enhanced most of the features that made the original Mother so unique. Rural setting, alien invasion, weird atmosphere that in retrospect seems pretty ahead of its time, and of course, psychic children, including he who is essentially the face of the series now, Ness. And yes, his name is in fact an anagram of SNES. Clearly, no expense was spared when naming these characters. This is a dumb joke. Earthbound was a critical success in Japan, but an odd marketing campaign in North America resulted in it pretty much flopping, selling poorly, and failing to gain critical praise, due mostly to its childish appearance and the fact that RPGs would have become big in America for a few more years. But as time went on and American tastes changed, Earthbound finally began to gain the praise that it missed out on, now being boasted as one of the finest RPGs ever made. And despite the underwhelming international sales of Earthbound, Itoi had one more story to tell in the Mother universe, so development on a 3rd title began for the SNES in 1994. However, as development got underway, Nintendo decided to shift the team's efforts onto their upcoming new system, the Nintendo 64. Earthbound 64 was shown to the public a few times, but the technical demands of the game meant that it wasn't actually able to run on the N64. So, development was again pushed onto the Nintendo 64 disk drive. But since that system flopped like a dying fish, that plan didn't really work out either, leading to the eventual cancellation of Earthbound 64 in August of 2000. Fortunately, however, development was picked back up for the Game Boy Advance 3 years later, following the successful launch of GBA ports of both Mother and Earthbound. Oh, my phone stand broke. Oh no! And thus, Mother 3 was released on April 20th, 2006 in Japan, and once again boasted all the signature marks of a Mother game. Weirdly silly, yet occasionally dark story, unique RPG battle mechanics, and of course a main character named after the game's system of origin, Lucas. Really? Lucas? Really? Why not Advan for Game Boy Advance or something? Unless George Lucas is making this poetry rhyme, I don't see how this connects. Star Wars is like poetry. Rhymes. Now, you may have noticed that I only mentioned Mother 3's Japanese release, and this is because that was the game's only release. Mother 3 never saw localization outside of Japan, and still hasn't to this day, much to the frustration of Earthbound's incredibly dedicated fan base. However, when it appeared that Nintendo was never going to release Mother 3 outside of Japan, fan site Starman.net didn't complain or start petitions, they just bit the bullet and localized it themselves. Spearheaded by professional translator, I can't believe I'm about to say this name, Clyde Tomato Mandolin, the Mother 3 fan translation was completed in October of 2008 and downloaded over 100,000 times in just its first week. And really, the passion of Earthbound fans has sort of revitalized the franchise in recent years. A trend which primarily began in 1999 with the release of the original Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, in which Ness appeared as an unlockable fighter. And ever since then, Mother has been represented in every single Super Smash Bros. Title, effectively introducing the franchise to a far wider audience than it would have had otherwise. An audience that was really excited to explore this series that they have been introduced to. But due to the game's poor sales in America, SNES copies of Earthbound have become incredibly hard to find and extremely expensive, and heck, the other two games never even made it outside of Japan. These were problems that plagued the Mother fanbase for years, but eventually, Nintendo finally came around to solve them. Well, most of them. In 2013, Nintendo officially released Earthbound through their Virtual Console service for the very first time. And then, on June 14th, 2015, the company also released the first officially translated and localized version of the original Mother entitled Earthbound Beginning. Mother 3 has still yet to see any sort of official local